Alien abductions have been a fascination of mine ever since I read my first book on UFOs. Since the 1960s, hundreds of people have reported being taken by otherworldly visitors, kidnapped, experimented on, and returned home forever changed. However, as I grew older, as my critical thinking evolved, I began to see these stories differently. I've come to a conclusion that this phenomenon is far less paranormal, but much more sinister. I'll present to you in this video why I and many others think that alien abductions are part of a darker conspiracy orchestrated by the deepest parts of the intelligence and military community. The alien abduction phenomenon really kicked off in the 1960s with the famous Hill abduction case. On the night of September 19th, 1961, married couple Betty and Barney Hill were driving home through the quiet, foggy backroads of New Hampshire. The still night was broken only by the hum of their car engine. However, at some point during their drive, they noticed a strange light in the sky that seemed to be following them. Curious but uneasy, they pulled over to investigate. Through their binoculars, they claimed the lights were part of a strange spacecraft, inside of which they saw bizarre humanoid figures moving. Panicked, the Hills jumped back into their car and sped off. The craft kept following them and getting closer and closer, until a strange buzzing sound surrounded their vehicle, growing louder and louder. And then, blackness. When the Hills regained awareness, they found themselves miles down the road with no memory of how they got there. Their watches also confirmed that several hours had passed, which they also couldn't explain. After this incident, strange things began happening at their home. Barney suffered from severe anxiety and insomnia, while Betty was haunted by vivid nightmares of being taken aboard the spacecraft and medically experimented on. Eventually, the couple sought help and underwent hypnosis to find out what actually happened on that dreadful night. Under one of these sessions, both recalled being abducted, subjected to medical examination, and shown bizarre alien instruments. Betty even recalled being shown a star map which she later reproduced. Some researchers believe it depicted the Zeta Reticuli star system. The Hill story became a cultural phenomenon, jump-starting the alien abduction craze. Soon, hundreds of others began coming forward with their own accounts. For instance, the case of Travis Walton, an Arizona logger who vanished for 5 days after a UFO encounter that was witnessed by him and his co-workers. Or the Pascagoula incident, where 2 fishermen claimed they were paralyzed and examined by robotic-like beings after a UFO landed near their boat. Despite the different small details, most alien abductions follow a similar pattern. People are taken aboard a bizarre alien craft, medically examined, implanted with mysterious devices, and then returned home, most often severely traumatized. Many abductees report long-lasting effects: severe anxiety, terrifying nightmares, hearing voices in their head, or feeling as if they're being tracked. Over the years, society has been divided on the issue. The public is without a doubt fascinated but often skeptical, viewing these stories as some sort of folklore or delusion of these abductees. The scientific community largely dismisses them as psychological conditions, false memories, or sleep paralysis. Even within the UFO circles, the phenomenon remains controversial. My opinion on alien abductions has drastically changed over the years. I went from a believer gobbling up every story I could get my hands on to a kind of a pseudo-skeptic. Now, let me be clear, I do think, to a degree, these abductions are going on, but I don't think they're extraterrestrial in nature. I think they're part of a much deeper, darker government conspiracy. After World War II, the world's 2 biggest superpowers at the time, the United States and the Soviet Union, entered a long, tense rivalry known as the Cold War. For decades, the global split between the Western Bloc, led by the United States, and the Eastern Bloc, led by the Soviets. It was an era defined by nuclear threats, espionage, propaganda, and a shadow war fought through covert operations. By 1953, at the close of the Korean War, US intelligence officials grew fearful that their adversaries, the USSR, China, and North Korea, were developing advanced mind control techniques for interrogation, indoctrination, and espionage. Fearing a national security nightmare, their solution was simple: fight fire with fire. That same year, 1953, the CIA launched one of the most secretive and controversial projects in its history, MKUltra. This was a massive, clandestine experimentation program that was designed to explore how human behavior could be manipulated and controlled. It wasn't just one operation, but an umbrella project funding more than 100 sub-projects across universities, hospitals, prisons, and even private contractors. Each sub-project pursued the same broad goal, which was mind control, but with very different methods. One of the most notorious sub-projects was Operation Midnight Climax, where the CIA set up fake brothels in San Francisco and New York. Unsuspecting men were lured in, secretly dosed with LSD, and observed through one-way mirrors to study their behavior. I did a whole video on that operation alone, which you can check out right here. Besides that, other experiments involved psychiatrists testing drugs on prisoners and hospital patients to see how their minds unraveled under chemical influence. Many researchers believe that the ultimate goal of MKUltra was to create a Manchurian candidate, a person so thoroughly brainwashed they could be programmed to kill or sabotage on command without even realizing it or having any memory of it after. Over the years, allegations surfaced that multiple infamous criminals have been guinea pigs in the MKUltra program. Whitey Bulger, for instance, the Irish mob boss, was supposedly dosed with LSD while in prison as part of an MKUltra sub-project. Charles Manson and his followers spent significant time at the Haight-Ashbury Free Medical Clinic in San Francisco, which was closely linked to MKUltra. Even Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, reportedly participated in brutal psychological experiments during his time at Harvard. So, what do alien abductions have to do with this clandestine experimentation program? Well, the public first learned about MKUltra in 1974, when journalist Seymour Hersh published an expose in the New York Times. He revealed that the CIA had been conducting illegal domestic operations against US citizens. The story sparked nationwide outrage and led to congressional investigations, most notably the Church Committee and the Rockefeller Commission. Their revelations were shocking. They've uncovered that the MKUltra program supposedly officially ended in 1973, when amidst the Watergate scandal, then CIA Director Richard Helms ordered the destruction of most MKUltra documents. What survived was revealed in the hearings but was only a fragment of truth. Miles Copeland, one of the CIA's own founders, later admitted that Congress had only gotten the barest glimpse into MKUltra. And CIA veteran Victor Marchetti went further, claiming in 1988 that mind control research never stopped. The official story was just a cover. Now, after the revelations of MKUltra activity, the public heavily focused their attention on the drug aspects of the program. However, what received far less attention was a darker part of the MKUltra research: psychoelectronics. Because most of the files were destroyed, these programs are often called dark sub-projects because we know very little about them. However, the scarce information we do have point that as early as the 1960s, the CIA and the US military began secret human experiments with electronic brain manipulation, remote monitoring, and implanted devices. Many believe that these dark sub-projects of MKUltra used UFOs and alien abductions as a cover story, and it all makes sense. The UFO craze exploded in the late 1940s with the Kenneth Arnold sighting and the Roswell crash. By the early 60s, the same time MKUltra's psychoelectronic projects began, the first alien abduction case, the Hill couple, entered public consciousness. Abductions provided the perfect cover. If you look closely at many of these abduction cases, you can see cracks in the operation. Abductees often describe their captors as humanoid beings who speak perfect English, or even note the presence of military personnel working alongside the aliens. One great example of that is the case of Licia Davidson, who claimed to be abducted by aliens but also remembers that while she was being experimented on, there was a human standing there with a black box with protruding antennas. Davidson lived in Tujunga Canyon, a Los Angeles suburb notorious for abduction reports. Multiple victims from that area described seeing military figures involved. Coincidence? I don't think so. Tujunga Canyon also housed a missile base, and in 1973, that very site was chosen to become home to a Center for the Study and Reduction of Violence, a program proposing deep brain electrode implants, remote EEG monitoring, and behavioral modification. The man behind the program was Dr. Jolly West, one of MKUltra's most infamous operators. West's name pops up again and again in these mind control operations. He was reportedly connected to the Haight-Ashbury Free Medical Clinic in San Francisco, where, again, Charles Manson and his followers were exposed to LSD. He was also Jack Ruby's psychiatrist after Ruby killed Lee Harvey Oswald. His involvement in MKUltra and his proximity to alien abduction cases raises serious links between the two. The theory, in its essence, is simple. Some covert secret sub-project of MKUltra is using UFOs and aliens as a cover story. They are abducting people, medically experimenting on them, and then returning them to their homes, often with implanted devices so they can track their guinea pigs. To the victims and to the public, they look alien. They wear masks, they put them under hypnosis, they drug them, they erase their memories. Now, to uncover the truth, we have to ask ourselves, was the CIA and military at the time even capable of such operations? Well, as it turns out, they were quite capable. Take, for instance, the peculiar case of Candy Jones. Jones was a famous fashion model who, in the 1970s, married radio host Long John Nebel, known for his talk show on paranormal phenomenon and UFOs. Soon after their marriage, Nebel noticed Jones suffered from violent mood swings and symptoms of multiple personality disorder. Curious, he placed her under hypnosis, and what she revealed was bizarre. Jones claimed that in the 1960s, she had been recruited into CIA mind control programs at West Coast colleges and universities and given an alternate personality named Arlene Grant. With this identity, she became the perfect Manchurian candidate. Through her modeling school, she was allegedly used as a cover courier for the CIA, traveling across Asia during the 1960s and 70s. Skeptics dismissed her story partially because of Nebel's reputation for fringe topics, but investigations uncovered troubling evidence. Associates at her modeling school recalled unexplained absences, supposedly for business trips that never quite made sense. Even more weird, records revealed a passport issued under the name Arlene Grant with Jones in disguise, with a dark wig and heavy makeup. There were also phone messages from Japan Airlines addressed to Miss Arlene Grant, and yet Jones had no memory of it. She was in many ways a textbook example of mind control. Another disturbing example happened in 1954. That July, a 3-year-old girl vanished from a parking lot outside a bar. A search party formed soon after, which fairly quickly found a man wandering nearby, shirtless, scratched, and bloodied. The girl's body was found dead, not far from where this man was. She was also brutally raped. The man was identified as Jimmy Shaver, an Air Force instructor at Lackland Air Force Base with no criminal history or record of violence. At the time of his arrest, he couldn't recall who he was or what had happened. Witnesses described him as dazed and disoriented, like he wasn't himself. But here's where the story gets a really bizarre twist. Shaver's prison psychiatrist turned out to be none other than Jolly West. Researchers argue that Shaver may have been a test subject in the early MKUltra experiments at Lackland. If true, the case represents tragic proof that the CIA's mind control program was successful, although this time the subject went loose on an innocent child. Considering all of this, the question whether little gray aliens are actually false memories implanted by some sort of sub-project of MKUltra seems kind of rhetorical. In the 1960s, neurophysiologist Dr. Jose Delgado, often linked to CIA research, invented the Stimulceiver, a remote-controlled brain implant that could deliver electrical signals, alter moods, and even control behavior. Many believe MKUltra projects developed similar devices capable of remotely inducing trances, erasing memories, and inserting suggestions. All of this can explain why alien abductees are hearing voices in their head and having anxiety and nightmares. When MKULTRA's chief architect, Sidney Gottlieb, was asked during a congressional hearing whether the CIA had explored wiping memories in animals using radar and microwaves, his reply was, "I can believe that, Senator." One can only imagine his answer if the question had been about humans. Besides that, another interesting aspect of the alien abduction phenomenon is that many abductees, after their experience, join UFO cults because a lot of the times they were instructed by aliens to do so while being medically experimented on. And what is even stranger is that many of these UFO cults are led by ex-CIA or Special Forces individuals. For example, Virgil Armstrong, a former Green Beret and CIA officer, founded a UFO-themed New Age group claiming insider military knowledge about extraterrestrials. Or Elizabeth Clare Prophet, whose cult blended apocalyptic prophecy with UFO beliefs and was rumored to have CIA ties. If abductions were really covert experiments, then these cults may have been a way to manage, monitor, or even further manipulate the very people who had been experimented on. Now, I'm not some sort of super skeptic on this issue. I do believe aliens exist, and my opinion can be on this matter easily swayed one way or the other. And so I'm eager to read the comments down below on what you think this actually is. Are these abductions extraterrestrial, or are they part of some sort of government conspiracy? Thank you for watching.